All right, jumping straight into it. So we got Jujutsu Kaisen chapter 253. So the heroes who seem to have the upper hand against Sukuna. We had Maki finally show up. I know people have been asking for chapters and It feels like 100 chapters. People have been asking, where's Maki? Maki shows up now. Maki's showing some impressive feats, and I think what I really liked about 253 is just the artwork. Right, it really showed you the power of Maki, just the destruction that was being had in this fight. But Sukuna, the king of curses, is the king of curses for a reason. So what do you think about this chapter? Give me your breakdown.
Gege shows he's just like me, and Maki is his favorite character because when she's on a panel or when she's in a fight sequence in particular, he goes all out when it comes to the drawing. So I guess the fight feats between the two fighters, you can tell that Sukuna obviously has the upper hand, but Maki's holding her own. Now, the thing that I find interesting is when Sukuna mentions Gojo, Kashimo, the previous sorcerers were essentially males, right? Which goes back to the psychology that we brought out in the previous videos about, he likes to play with things that are interesting, right? He treats them as males. And in this case, it seems like the main course is Maki. And he'd never seen, I guess, a heavily restricted user in the past. And that's why Maki essentially piques his interest.
Mm-hmm.
And for the first time ever, he mentions that, he was given a task, right? A God-given duty to see who is superior. Is it jujutsu or is it, the body, which is
He mentioned like sorcery or the body, right? I remember that happening. Yeah.
right. So, and ultimately lands a black flash, which shows how dialed in he is. Not necessarily surprised with him, violating Maki at the end. I am hopeful Maki did survive that.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't seem anything that would cause her to die. And I'm hoping that, given her abilities, that she would slowly recover. But yeah, that's just my initial thoughts, just,
Yeah.
Reading the chapter.
Yeah. So what kind of stood out to me is the beginning of the chapter where they were asking, like, it was a flashback, who's the strongest grade 1 sorcerer? And they mentioned Kusakabe,
Right.
who's shown in other aspects to be, I want to say, maybe not go as far as say a coward, but timid when it comes to battle, right?
Right.
So, like, what was the point of them bringing this up? And then we get to the end of the chapter after you mentioned Sukuna landing the Black Flash. Maki seems out of the battle, whether temporarily or permanently. But now we just have Kusakabe who's saying, me versus Sukuna? But it's like, I'm just thinking grade 1 versus the King of Curses. It seems no match. But I'm assuming he has some kind of special curse technique that can prolong this fight until the rest of the people can get back in the fight. Something like a la Takaba, right? Just
Right.
something that can prolong this. Because you would think, just like I would think, or correct me if I'm wrong, that Sukuna would just blitz him and one shot him.
Yeah.
So there must be something. And then I think Takaba has shown he will hide behind superior heroes in battle. But what
Mm-hmm.
if there are no heroes? As he was saying, I don't see Itadori, I don't see Chozo. What if the way for him to really go all out is to leave him on an island by himself to see whatever that curse technique is? Like I said, I fully do not expect him to beat Sukuna, but maybe can he stall time or be some sort of a distraction for them to get back into the fight? That's kind of what I'm thinking, why they foreshadowed the who's the strongest grade 1 source. I'm like, grade 1? Like, does anything below special even matter versus Sukuna? You know what I mean? But as you mentioned in the last video when Khan was here, Gege foreshadows things for a reason, right? He's gonna bring it full circle in some capacity, or usually we hope. You know what I'm saying? So that was the biggest takeaway for me. Like I said, the fight sequences looked amazing. I'm not surprised by the Black Flash, but Kusakabe, do you think there's anything to be made of that, or do you think that's just like throwaway?
I don't know. That is an interesting point that you bring up. Like, let's say he reveals like a curse technique, because I know it was mentioned that he doesn't have one. He's like one of the strongest without a curse technique, but then that's just often passing. But then again, he probably can reveal if he's pushed that he kind of reveals that he actually does in fact have a curse technique, right? Kusakabe reminds me of, he's like the equivalent of a less brave version of Shikamaru in a way. He's a person that just doesn't want to do the hard work, right?
Yeah.
The labor. He just wants to just relax, chill, and not take on any potential risks in his life. But I think now he's put in a situation where he would have to. But because he's a first grade sorcerer, I don't see him even doing anything. I think Gege is playing games, right? Especially with his writing. He brings things full circles only for it to get crushed by Sukuna, it seems like. Right. I think he's just playing games where he's like, yeah, he's gonna kind of boost up this character only for him to probably just get one shot or probably just have a little split moment where he's doing well and then he just gets annihilated. I think Kusakabe won't have any answers for Sukuna. I think maybe it's just an opportunity for an opening for another advantageous situation to insert itself in that moment. So
can you maybe speculate what may happen? Like I said, I think he's just to stall time. He must have something to be able to stall. But the issue is because if you can't stall Sukuna, then what? If he just boom one shots you, takes you out, then what? But it has to be part of some kind of plan or something. Because what is he? I mean, he was in Shibuya, but it's like what? I don't know. Like why did you give us that information? What was that flashback about? So can you foreshadow like maybe who's gonna get back into the fight, or are you kind of like right now at a loss?
Yeah, I'm kind of at a loss, but I would say that there's a few things that can happen, right? Because Maki mentions that, she has to try to, push the fight and end it as quickly as possible. Because even if he turns, there's not much he can do. But I think what makes the most sense at this time is Yuji and Chozo, because Yuji is right now focusing on his reverse curse technique, honing that, while Chozo is kind of helping him alleviate his damaged body at the moment. So I think they may enter the fray unless we have another individual that has not entered the battlefield. But I think ultimately, as you mentioned, Kusakabe is going to try to stall Sukuna as best as he can, and then someone else will probably enter the fray. I just don't know who it will be. I think ultimately it should be Yuji and Chozo, but then I think something else has to happen afterwards in order for things to get interesting. So one thing I was going to mention too, what I found interesting, because the thing about Sukuna at this point is we can all agree Sukuna is just crazy overpowered, but just the fact that he's just so articulate, like, and smart and seeing through everything, right? Even with Ino when he tries to surprise Sukuna in the building. And then, of course, Kusakabe uses blade to try to come down from the ceiling and attack Sukuna. Sukuna seen it coming. What I did notice was when Maki was using the Soul Katana specifically, and the fact that Sukuna was able to block it. And I know it was mentioned previously before, the Soul Katana, even if you try to, whatever it hits is going to split the soul. But I did notice, remember when Sukuna fought Yuta, he was able to use dismantles to kind of in between himself. So it's kind of like affinity in a way. So he's using little dismantles so don't touch him. So I think he was doing the same with Maki's case. But that just goes to show his level of intellect in the battle. So I think he's one step ahead of the
when you've been around as long as he's been around, you have to have seen so much. Been in, and it'll be interesting. I don't know if we ever get a full Sukuna fleshed out backstory, but it has to be interesting to see if he's ever been pushed other than, and I mean, we could debate on if he was really pushed in the Gojo fight or not, but it would be interesting to see if he's ever been pushed back in the Heian era. You know what I'm saying? So, because going through all that battle, you have to become so knowledgeable. You've seen so many things, you learn so many tactics. So I'm not surprised at him being a master in the art of battle. You know what I mean? I'm 100%. I just, all in all, and I could be wrong, maybe Sukuna is going to win, but I just think that the heroes are going to win, but I'm just trying to think of every possible outcome and how they can do it, because right now it looks bleak. It looks like they don't really have that much of a chance, but somehow it's going to come around. I'm wondering if in the next Shadows we're going to kind of get to really see the full battle of Kari versus Urume. I wonder if we're going to see that battle, maybe take a break from the Sukuna stuff. Not that I want to, but I'm just wondering, when are we really going to get that battle as well that's happening simultaneously? So I'm wondering if the chapters are going to kind of shift there, and then there's going to be some abrupt shift back to when we see maybe Yuji, Yuta, possibly if Maki's still alive, if Yuta's even still alive, which I think he is. But if what we're going to see, what the attack plan is going to be against Sukuna, because obviously right now I just think strength isn't going to do it. There has to be some kind of tactic. and it's kind of starting to feel reminiscent of some of the animes. Two of the big three in particular, but I'm not really gonna
Yeah.
go there right now. But it's starting to kind of feel like that a little bit, you know.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I think ultimately, I mean, we can go a bunch of different ways. Either, you know, the merger plays a role in
Hmm.
Sukuna's defeat, or Fushiguro, right? And he kind of just, instead of him saying he's done and he's distraught, he comes back and plays a role within to kind of give the heroes a lending hand. It can either go in several different directions. I think it's probably going to be those two variables that play a role, but who knows at this point?
Yeah. I think we just feel anxious because we've been told it's not going to go on for much longer. Gege is going to end it. I think if we didn't know that, we would
Yeah,
think, okay, there's so much more still to happen. But because we've been told that, I think we're just so anxious. Like, okay, the resolution is coming soon, but we
yeah,
don't really know how soon. You know what I mean? But definitely.
yeah, man. I
But
mean, you know what they calling it now? They calling it Sukuna
Sukuna
Kaisen.
Kaisen. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I kind of think I think Sukuna is Gege. I think they're the
We know
same
who
person.
Gege's favorite, whose favorite. This is the first time I've probably seen in quite some time where the villain has so much, like, I would say, plot armor. But I mean, he's built them up to this point throughout the
Yeah,
whole series, so it's kind of like, you know, if we're okay with Gojo just being super overpowered and obliterating everyone in this path, we can't complain much about Sukuna at this point, you know.
yeah. All right, but I'm looking forward to 254 and chapters to come. But jump in the comment section. I definitely would love to see an answer on. Do you guys see Kusakabe playing a big role, or what do you think is going to happen next? And also, do
Yeah,
you guys think the outcome is going to be Sukuna's going to win? Because I feel like that's a huge curveball, even though it looks that way, but it always looks that way, and somehow they end up losing. But what if
right.
Sukuna just wins? Like,
That'll
I feel like
be
that would
crazy.
do something. Like, it would tear people, but it would be such a bold statement for a manga to make, an anime to make. You know what I mean?
100%, hundred
Yeah.
percent.
Jump in the comment section. Let us know. Of course, much more videos to come. Like, comment, subscribe.